Morning light spilled softly across the kitchen floor as Sarah rinsed breakfast dishes, half listening to the quiet hum of the house. Outside, winter sun touched the garden fence, and inside, the only sound was the gentle clink of porcelain and the soft patting of tiny paws. Milo, their golden retriever puppy, usually spent mornings chasing dust motes or dragging toys across the tiles. But today he was sitting unusually still. Sarah noticed him only when she turned around. Milo stood near the back door, tail low, ears tilted forward, something red clutched carefully in his mouth. A ribbon. Thin. Slightly dirty. He let out a small whine, then walked to her and dropped it at her feet. "Where did you get that?" she murmured, kneeling. Milo didn't wag. He didn't bark. Instead, he nudged her hand, then trotted to the door again. Waiting. Sarah opened the door, assuming he wanted to play outside. But Milo didn't run into the yard. He stepped out slowly, looked back at her, then gave a sharp, urgent bark, completely unlike his usual playful yips. Her stomach tightened. "Milo, what is it?" she whispered, stepping onto the porch. The puppy grabbed the ribbon again and tugged gently at her pajama cuff, pulling toward the side yard, toward the old wooden fence line they rarely used. Sarah hesitated. The air suddenly felt heavier, quieter, like the world was holding its breath. Then Milo started trembling. But what the dog sensed was far from ordinary. Before we continue, remember to like, share, and subscribe for more heart-touching dog stories. And tell me, where are you watching from? Morning arrived gently in Sarah's neighborhood. Not with noise, not with rush, but with light. Soft winter sunlight slipped through the kitchen blinds, painting thin golden lines across the floor tiles. The house still smelled faintly of coffee grounds and lavender dish soap. The heater hummed in slow, steady breaths. Sarah stood at the sink, sleeves pushed up, rinsing the last breakfast plate. Water ran warm over her fingers. For a moment everything felt ordinary, safe. Behind her, tiny nails clicked softly against the floor. Milo, her 6-month-old golden retriever puppy, moved through the kitchen like a small, curious shadow. Usually mornings meant chaos. Socks stolen, toys dragged, tail wagging so hard it bumped chair legs. But today, he was quiet. Sarah reached for a towel, drying her hands slowly. "Milo," she said, not turning yet. No response. That alone made her pause. Because Milo always answered. With a bark, a yip, or the unmistakable thump-thump-thump of a happy tail. She turned and saw him. He sat near the back door, perfectly still. Ears slightly forward. Tail low but not tucked. Body alert but not scared. Just focused. Sarah frowned softly. "What are you doing, buddy?" Milo didn't move toward her. Didn't wag. Didn't play bow. Instead, he lifted his head slightly, revealing something thin and red hanging from his mouth. A ribbon. Dirty. Faded. Frayed at one end. Sarah blinked. Well, where did that come from? She crouched slowly, careful not to startle him. Milo walked toward her with slow, deliberate steps. Not playful. Not clumsy puppy steps. Intentional. He dropped the ribbon onto the tile between them. Then he looked up at her. Waiting. Sarah picked it up carefully. It smelled faintly like dirt. And something older. Like damp wood. Like something that had been outside for a long time. She rubbed the fabric between her fingers. "Huh," she whispered. "That's not from the yard." Milo let out a small whine. Not loud. Not panicked. Just urging. He nudged her wrist with his nose. Then turned. Walked back toward the door. Sat again. Waiting. Sarah stood slowly, heart giving a small, confused flutter. "You want to go out?" At the word out, most days Milo would spin in circles. Today he only stood. Still watching her. She moved toward the door, ribbon still in her hand. The moment she touched the handle, Milo's tail moved once. Slow. Careful. She opened the door. Cold air slipped inside. The backyard looked exactly the same as always. Patchy winter grass. The wooden fence. The old maple tree losing the last of its leaves. "Go on," she said gently. Milo stepped outside. But he didn't run. Didn't sniff wildly. Didn't chase birds. He walked 3 steps forward, then stopped. Looked back at her. Then gave one sharp bark. Not playful. Not loud. But urgent. Sarah stepped onto the porch. Milo, what is it? Her voice came out softer than she expected. The yard felt quieter than usual. No distant lawn mower. No kids yelling. Even the wind seemed to pause between branches. Milo trotted a few feet to the left side of the yard, toward the older section of fence they rarely used. He lowered his head, picked up the ribbon again from where he had dropped it on the porch, and walked back to her. Then he gently grabbed the hem of her pajama cuff and pulled. Not hard, just enough to feel. Sarah froze. Her brain tried to file it under play, but it didn't feel like play. Milo released the fabric, then walked toward the side yard again. Stopped. Looked back. Waited. Her chest tightened slightly. You want me to follow you? She asked quietly. Milo's ears lifted. Tail moved once. Then he took 2 slow steps forward. Sarah stepped off the porch. The grass felt cold through her thin house slippers. She wrapped her arms loosely around herself as she walked toward him. The side yard was narrower, shaded longer during winter. The fence there was older, wood darker from years of rain. They rarely went there. No reason to. Milo walked halfway down the narrow strip of grass, then stopped. His body stiffened slightly. His breathing changed. Faster. Shallow. Sarah felt it immediately. Milo. He didn't look back this time. He stared straight ahead, toward the far corner near the fence line. Then, his body started trembling. Not violent shaking. Just small, constant vibrations through his legs. Sarah's stomach dropped. She stepped closer, placing a hand gently on his back. It's okay, she whispered automatically. Milo didn't relax. He let out a tiny whine, almost like a question. Sarah followed his gaze. The corner looked normal. Old leaves. A small dip in the ground near the fence post. Nothing moving. Nothing obvious. Still, the air felt heavier here, like stepping into a room where someone had just left. Sarah swallowed. Milo, there's nothing there. But even as she said it, she wasn't sure. Milo slowly lowered himself into a sit, still trembling, still watching that exact spot. Seconds passed. Long quiet seconds. A breeze pushed through the fence slats, carrying the smell of cold earth and distant chimney smoke. Sarah rubbed Milo's chest gently. You're okay. I'm here. Gradually, very gradually, his trembling slowed. But he didn't take his eyes off the fence line. After another minute, Sarah exhaled slowly. Okay. Bathroom break. Then inside. She waited. Milo didn't move. Eventually, she guided him gently back toward the porch. He walked with her but kept looking over his shoulder. Inside, warmth wrapped around them again. Sarah hung the ribbon over the sink faucet for now. I'll throw it out later, she murmured. Milo sat beneath it, watching it, not blinking much. Sarah dried her hands again, trying to shake the strange feeling crawling under her skin. It's just a ribbon, she said aloud, mostly to herself. Milo rested his chin on his paws, but he didn't look relaxed. Late morning passed slowly. Sarah worked from her laptop at the dining table. Emails. Reports. Normal life. Milo usually napped during this time. Today, he paced. Door. Window. Door again. Small soft whines escaping his throat when he thought she wasn't looking. By noon, Sarah finally stood. Okay. Walk time. The word walk finally sparked something familiar. Milo grabbed his leash from the hook and trotted back, tail wagging. Relief washed through her. See? Normal. Outside, the neighborhood felt alive again. Cars passing. A neighbor waving. Someone walking their older beagle across the street. Milo sniffed bushes. Chased a drifting leaf. Pulled gently toward a lamppost like always. Sarah laughed quietly. That's my normal boy. But when they returned home and stepped into the kitchen, Milo froze again. His eyes locked onto the ribbon hanging from the faucet. His ears tilted forward. His tail went still. Sarah followed his gaze. Something twisted quietly in her chest. "Milo, it's trash," she said softly. She reached up, took the ribbon, walked to the trash can, dropped it in. The lid closed with a soft plastic thud. Behind her, Milo let out a sound she had never heard from him before. Not a bark, not a whine. Something deeper. Something disappointed. Sarah turned quickly. Milo! He stood by the trash can, staring at it. Still. Very still. Then he sat down slowly, as never leaving it. The house felt quiet again. Too quiet. Sarah rubbed her arms, suddenly cold despite the heater humming nearby. She told herself it was nothing. Just a puppy being weird. Just a piece of fabric. Just a normal day. But as afternoon light shifted across the floor, and Milo refused to leave the trash can side, Sarah felt something she couldn't quite name settle in her chest. Uneasy. Waiting. And somewhere deep inside her, a small voice whispered that this wasn't random. That this wasn't just puppy behavior. That something had started. And she had no idea where it would lead. But what the dog sensed was far from ordinary. The next morning felt colder. Not just outside. Inside too. Sarah woke before her alarm, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the heater cycling on and off. For a few seconds she didn't remember why she felt unsettled. Then she heard it. Soft movement. Not pacing. Not scratching. Just shifting. She turned her head. Milo was already awake, sitting beside her bed, watching her. His tail rested still against the floor. His ears were forward but relaxed. Not alarmed. Not playful. Just waiting. Sarah pushed herself up slowly. "Hey," she whispered. Milo stood immediately, not with excitement but with purpose. He walked toward the bedroom door, then stopped, looked back. Sarah exhaled slowly. "Okay. Breakfast first, buddy." In the kitchen, morning routines tried to reassert themselves. Coffee brewing. Toast popping. The faint smell of peanut butter. Milo usually bounced around during breakfast prep. Today he sat near the back door again. Same spot. Same posture. Sarah filled his bowl. "Milo, come eat." He glanced at the bowl, then back at the door. His tail moved once. Slow. Sarah swallowed. "Eat first," she said gently. He obeyed, but quickly. Mechanically. Like it wasn't his priority. The moment he finished, he walked straight back to the door. Saturday. Waited. Sarah wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, warmth soaking into her fingers. "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's see." She opened the door. Cold morning air brushed her face. Milo stepped outside slowly. Again no running. No sniffing frenzy. No playful circles. He moved straight toward the side yard. Sarah followed, heart beating just slightly faster than normal. The winter grass crunched softly under her slippers. The sky was pale gray, clouds thin like stretched cotton. Milo reached the narrow strip beside the fence. Stopped. Lowered his head. Sniffed. Long focused. Deep scenting. Sarah watched him carefully. "Milo." He pawed gently at the leaves near the fence base. Then nudged something forward with his nose. Red. Another ribbon. Cleaner than yesterday's. But still worn. Sarah's breath caught slightly. "Milo, where are you finding these?" He picked it up carefully. Walked back toward her. Same slow, deliberate steps. Same intense eye contact. He dropped it at her feet. Then sat. Waiting. The air felt heavier again like yesterday. Like stepping into a memory that didn't belong to her. Sarah crouched. Picked up the ribbon. This one smelled faintly sweet. Like old fabric softener. Like something that used to belong inside a house. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. "You're bringing me these?" she asked softly. Milo blinked slowly. Then turned his head back toward the fence. Listening. Ears rotating slightly. Catching sounds Sarah couldn't hear. Wind slid through the fence slats. Leaves shifted. Nothing else. Sarah stood slowly. Okay. Good boy. Her voice sounded calmer than she felt. Back inside, she set the ribbon on the counter. Milo sat beneath it again, watching, not blinking much. The clock ticked loudly on the wall. Sarah tried to shake it off. She opened her laptop, answered emails, joined a morning work call. But every few minutes, her eyes drifted to Milo, still sitting there, still watching the ribbon. At one point, her coworker's voice blurred in her headphones. "Sarah? You still with us?" "Yes," she said quickly. "Sorry. Connection lag." She muted herself again. Milo hadn't moved in nearly 20 minutes. Around late morning, Sarah finally stood. She picked up the ribbon, walked to the trash can, paused. Milo stood immediately, not barking, not panicking, just watching. She dropped the ribbon inside, closed the lid. Milo walked to the trash can slowly, sat beside it. Same as yesterday. Something inside her chest tightened again. "You can't keep bringing trash inside, buddy," she said softly. No response. He rested his chin near the cabinet, eyes fixed on the bin. Afternoon passed. Milo eventually followed her to the living room, lay beside her while she worked. But he wasn't fully relaxed. His ears twitched at small sounds. By evening, Sarah convinced herself she was overthinking. Puppies find things. They bring them home. That's normal, right? Dinner smelled like garlic and butter. The house warmed with cooking heat. Milo finally played with a rope toy for a few minutes, enough to make Sarah feel better. Later, she clipped on his leash. Evening walk. This time Milo wagged, pulled lightly, sniffed mailboxes, chased a drifting receipt across the sidewalk. Normal. So normal that Sarah laughed out loud. See? Just puppy stuff. But when they returned home, the moment the kitchen came into view, Milo slowed, stopped, looked toward the trash can. Sarah's stomach dropped. She tried to ignore it, took off her coat, hung the leash, but Milo walked straight to the trash can. Saturday. Waited. The kitchen lights hummed quietly overhead. Sarah stood there for a long moment. Then with a slow sigh, she opened the trash can, dug past paper towels and packaging, found the ribbon. She pulled it out. Milo stood. Tail moved once. Slow. She rinsed it under the sink without thinking why. Laid it on the counter to dry. Milo lay down beneath it. For the first time all day, his body relaxed. His breathing slowed. Sarah leaned against the counter, heart thudding quietly. "Milo, what is this?" He didn't look at her. He just watched the ribbon. Like it mattered. Like it meant something. Night settled quietly outside. Streetlights glowing soft amber through the blinds. Later, Sarah sat on the couch. Milo curled beside her. But just before falling asleep, he lifted his head, looked toward the back door, ears forward, listening. Then, very softly, he whimpered. Not scared, not hurt, just aware. Sarah rested her hand on his back. "I'm here," she whispered. His tail tapped the cushion once. But he didn't stop watching the dark hallway leading toward the kitchen. And long after Sarah drifted to sleep, Milo stayed awake, listening, waiting. Because something about those ribbons wasn't random. And Milo knew it, even if Sarah didn't. The third morning arrived under a low gray sky. Rain threatened but never fully fell. Just mist in the air. Cold. Heavy. Sarah stood at the kitchen counter, stirring oatmeal slowly, watching steam rise in thin curls. The house felt quieter than usual, like sound was being absorbed by the cloudy day outside. Behind her, Milo sat near the back door. Again. Same spot. Same posture. She didn't turn right away this time. Part of her already knew what she would see. She exhaled slowly, then glanced over her shoulder. Red. Another ribbon. Hanging from the corner of Milo's mouth. Cleaner than the last two. Almost like it had been protected from weather. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. "Milo," she said softly. He stood when she said his name. Not excited, just alert. He walked toward her carefully. Placed the ribbon on the floor near her slippers. Then stepped back. Saturday. Waiting. The oatmeal bubbled softly on the stove. Sarah turned the heat off. Silence filled the kitchen except for the faint tick of cooling metal. She picked up the ribbon. It smelled faintly like soap, and something else. Something human. Like skin lotion. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. She shook her head quickly. "You are finding these somewhere weird," she murmured. Milo gave a small breathy whine. She walked to the trash can immediately this time. Dropped it in. Closed the lid. Didn't pause. Didn't think. "I'm not keeping random fabric you find outside," she said, voice firmer than she felt. Behind her, Milo let out a soft sound. Not loud, but heavy. He walked to the trash can. Sat beside it. Same as before. Same stillness. Same quiet focus. Sarah grabbed her coffee mug quickly, taking a long sip even though it was too hot. "You're fine," she told him. "You're just being weird, puppy." He didn't move. Didn't look away. Morning work started. Laptop open. Meetings. Emails. But the tension didn't leave the room. Around mid-morning, Milo started pacing. Door. Trash can. Door again. Then he came to her chair. Rested his chin on her knee. His ears angled back slightly, not fear but uncertainty. Sarah stroked his head absent-mindedly. "It's okay, buddy." He didn't leave. 10 minutes later, he went back to the door. Saturday. Then stood. Then scratched lightly at it. Not destructive. Just persistent. Sarah muted her call. "Milo. Stop." He paused. Turned his head slightly. Then scratched again. 3 gentle taps. Then he sat. Waiting. Sarah pressed her lips together. "Fine." She stood. Walked to the trash can. Opened it. Pulled out the ribbon. The moment it was in her hand, Milo's posture changed. Not excitement. Relief. Visible. His shoulders lowered slightly. His breathing slowed. Sarah stared at him. "That's not normal," she whispered. She rinsed the ribbon under water again. Set it on the counter. Milo lay down beneath it immediately. Head on pause. Eyes open. Watching. The rest of the morning passed in uneasy quiet. By afternoon, Sarah made a decision. She grabbed a small storage box from the laundry room. Not big. Just enough for fabric scraps or old photos. She placed the 3 ribbons inside. Closed the lid. Set it on the high shelf in the pantry. Out of sight. "That's enough," she said quietly. Milo watched the entire process. Didn't bark. Didn't protest. But his ears slowly lowered. His tail stilled completely. The house felt heavier. By evening, Milo refused dinner for the first time since she brought him home. Sarah crouched beside his bowl. "Milo, eat." He sniffed. Turned away. Her stomach tightened. "You never skip food." She added a spoon of wet food. Mixed it. Still nothing. He walked to the pantry. Sat in front of it. Looking up. Sarah felt a chill run up her arms. "Milo." He didn't move. Just sat. Waiting. Minutes passed. Finally, with a frustrated exhale, she opened the pantry. Took down the box. Opened it. The ribbons lay inside, tangled softly together. Milo stepped closer. Sniffed the box. Then sat beside her feet. Calmer. Not fully relaxed, but calmer. Sarah leaned her head back against the pantry door. "What am I missing?" she whispered. Evening settled slowly. Rain finally started, soft taps against the windows. Sarah moved the ribbon box to the kitchen counter. Milo finally ate dinner. Later they sat on the couch. The house glowed with lamplight. Rain whispered outside. Milo rested against her leg, but his ears still twitched at distant sounds. Around 10 p.m., he suddenly lifted his head, looked toward the back door. Still. Listening. Then he stood. Walked slowly to the door. Saturday. Didn't scratch. Didn't bark. Just waited. Sarah watched from the couch. "Milo, it's raining." He didn't move. 30 seconds passed. Then he let out a soft whine. Not scared. Not upset. Just insistent. Sarah stood slowly, walked to the door, opened it. Cold rain smell rushed inside. Milo stepped onto the porch. Rain dotted his fur lightly. He walked to the edge, stopped, looked toward the side yard, stared, long, focused. His body tensed slightly, then relaxed, then tensed again. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself. The rain made the yard shimmer under the porch light. Normal. Empty. Still. Milo, she said softly. There's nothing there. But her voice sounded uncertain. After another minute, she guided him back inside. Dried him with a towel. He tolerated it. But his eyes kept drifting toward the side yard door. Later that night, Sarah lay in bed. Sleep came slowly. The house creaked softly with wind and rain. Beside the bed, Milo didn't sleep deeply. Every small outside noise made his ears flick. Once around midnight, he stood, walked to the bedroom doorway, stood there, listening. Sarah opened her eyes slightly. Milo. He didn't turn, just stood, alert, still. Then slowly, he returned to his bed beside hers. Lay down, but kept his head up, watching the hallway, waiting. And somewhere in the quiet darkness of the house, the feeling grew stronger, that Milo wasn't being stubborn, wasn't being strange, wasn't misbehaving. He was trying to tell her something, and she still wasn't listening. But soon, she wouldn't be able to ignore it anymore. By the fourth day, it was no longer random. It was routine. The morning light came pale and quiet through the blinds, and Sarah woke already tense, like her body had learned something her mind was still catching up to. She lay still for a moment, listening. Heater hum, distant car passing, a crow somewhere outside, and then, the soft click of nails on hardwood. She turned her head slowly. Milo stood at the bedroom doorway, waiting. Her chest tightened. Do you have another one? She whispered. He didn't move closer, didn't wag, just watched her. Sarah sat up, pushing her hair back slowly. Okay, she said under her breath. When she walked into the kitchen, she saw it immediately. The ribbon lay on the floor near the back door. This one was pink, faded, but once bright. Milo walked to it, picked it up, carried it to her, dropped it gently at her feet. Then he sat. Same ritual, same stillness, same waiting. Sarah stared at it for a long moment. Her coffee machine beeped behind her. Ready, but she didn't move. Instead, she crouched slowly, picked up the ribbon. It smelled faintly like rain and something sweet, like old laundry detergent. Her fingers trembled slightly. Every day, she whispered. Milo's ears shifted forward slightly. He was listening to her tone, not the words. She stood slowly, didn't throw it away this time. Instead, she placed it beside the box on the counter. Milo's shoulders lowered slightly, barely noticeable. But there. Sarah noticed. The kitchen clock ticked loudly. She poured coffee with shaking hands. Outside, the sky hung low and gray again, like the world was holding its breath. By mid-morning, the routine deepened. Milo didn't nap, didn't play much. Instead, he moved in cycles. Back door, window, pantry shelf, back door again. Each stop lasted seconds, like checking, like confirming. Around noon, Sarah tried to distract him. Toy, she said gently. She tossed his favorite rope across the living room. Normally, he would sprint, slide across the rug, shake it like a victory flag. Today, he walked to it, sniffed it, then walked back to the kitchen. Sarah pressed her lips together. Okay. Her heart beat faster. Not panic, but awareness. Something was wrong. Not dangerous wrong, but important wrong. Around 1 p.m., the mail truck passed outside. Normally Milo barked once, maybe twice. Today, he froze mid-step, ears forward, listening. Then he walked quickly to the back door. Saturday, whined softly. Sarah followed slowly. What is it? Milo didn't look at her, just stared toward the side yard fence line. Then he stood, grabbed the pink ribbon from the counter, walked to her, pressed it gently into her hand, then walked back to the door, looked at her, waiting. Her throat felt tight. You want me to come out there? It wasn't a question anymore. Milo's tail moved once. Slow. Sarah grabbed her sweater, opened the door. Cold air wrapped around her ankles. They walked to the side yard together. The grass was damp, the soil darker from last night's rain. Milo moved ahead but not far, checking to make sure she followed. Halfway down the narrow strip, he stopped. Same spot as before, near the older fence post. His body stiffened. His breathing changed. Sarah felt it again, that shift in the air. That heavy stillness. Milo lowered his head, sniffing deeply, slow, methodical. Then he sat, staring, trembling slightly. Sarah stepped beside him, placed her hand on his back. It's okay, she whispered. But her voice shook slightly. Nothing moved in the yard. No animals. No sounds beyond distant traffic and wind moving through branches. Still, the ground near the fence looked slightly disturbed. Not fresh digging, but uneven, like something had been there before. Sarah swallowed. We'll check it later, she murmured, mostly to herself. Milo didn't relax. Not fully, but after a minute he stood, walked back toward the house, looking over his shoulder twice. Inside, he settled under the counter where the ribbon box sat, finally laying down, finally breathing slower. By evening, Sarah noticed something new. When she moved too far from the kitchen, Milo followed. Not playfully, not clingy, just making sure. Once when she grabbed her car keys, Milo stepped in front of her, not blocking aggressively, just standing there, looking up, tail still, ears forward. She stared down at him. I'm just going to the store, she said softly. He didn't move. Seconds passed. Then slowly he stepped aside. But his eyes followed her until she stepped out the door. And when she came back 30 minutes later, he was waiting at the window, still, watching. That night, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, the ribbon box open in front of her. 4 ribbons now. Red, 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 pink. Different wear patterns, different fading, but all similar fabric. All intentional, not random scraps. She ran her fingers across them slowly. Who do these belong to? She whispered. Milo lay beside her chair, head resting on her foot, eyes half closed, but not fully asleep. The house was quiet, peaceful on the surface, but underneath, something was building, something repeating, something waiting. Later, as she turned off the lights, Milo walked to the back door one last time. Saturday. Listen. Then slowly, carefully, he walked back to bed. But Sarah noticed something new. For the first time, she didn't feel confused anymore. She felt certain. There was a pattern. And patterns meant meaning. And meaning meant, soon, there would be an answer. And Milo was getting closer to showing her what it was. The 5th morning arrived with sunlight. Clear. Bright. Almost too normal. The kind of morning that made everything from the past few days feel imagined. Sarah stood at the kitchen sink, washing her mug slowly, watching frost melt along the backyard fence. The air smelled clean, cold, quiet. Behind her, Milo's nails clicked softly across the tile. She didn't turn right away. Her chest already felt tight with expectation. Then she heard it. The soft sound of fabric brushing the floor. She closed her eyes briefly, then turned. Milo stood near the back door. Another ribbon. This one was blue. Faded in the middle, darker at the edges, like it had been tied once tightly. Sarah didn't speak. She walked toward him slowly. He stepped forward and placed it into her hand, careful, gentle. Then he turned toward the door, waiting. Her throat felt dry. You want me to come now, she whispered. Milo's tail moved once. Slow. Sarah grabbed her jacket this time. Real shoes, not slippers. Her pulse beat steady but heavy in her ears. The door opened. Cold air rushed in. Milo stepped outside immediately. No hesitation today. No looking back to check. Just moving. Purposeful. Sarah followed quickly. The winter sun made everything look sharper. The fence shadows, the leaf piles, the uneven ground near the old fence line. Milo walked straight to the side yard. Halfway down. He didn't stop this time. He kept going. Past the usual spot. Toward the very back corner, where the fence met the neighbor's unused lot. Sarah's breath caught. Milo, we don't go back there. But he didn't slow. At the corner, part of the fence leaned slightly outward. Not broken, just loose enough to create a narrow gap. Milo slipped through. Sarah froze. Milo! Her voice came out sharper than she meant. He reappeared immediately on the other side, pacing, looking at her. Then back toward the lot. Waiting. The gap looked just big enough. Sarah hesitated. Heart pounding. This is ridiculous, she whispered to herself. But something deeper, quieter, told her to follow. She pushed gently through the gap. The neighbor's lot was overgrown. Untouched for years. Wild grass. Old tree roots pushing through soil. A fallen shed frame half collapsed near the tree line. The air smelled like damp leaves and old wood. Milo moved ahead slowly now, checking she was behind him. They moved toward the far edge of the lot, where a cluster of thin trees grew close together. Then he stopped. Completely. His body stiffened. Then he lowered himself into a sit, staring at the ground. Sarah stepped beside him slowly. What is it? The ground here looked different. Not freshly dug, but sunken slightly, like soil had settled over time. There were small scraps around the area. Not trash. Not random. Fabric. Tiny pieces. Weathered. Faded. Sarah's breath caught. Her chest tightened painfully. She knelt slowly, hands trembling. She brushed leaves aside carefully. The soil underneath was darker, packed differently. Then, her fingers touched something. Smooth. Flat. Not stone. She brushed more dirt away. A small, weather-worn wooden marker emerged. Half buried. Faded writing scratched into it. She leaned closer. Heart pounding. The letters were worn but still visible. Luna. Sarah inhaled sharply. Oh! Her eyes burned suddenly. Beside her, Milo let out the softest whine. Not sad. Not scared. Just heavy. She swallowed hard. There were more ribbon fragments tied loosely around the nearby tree branch. Old. Faded. Colors barely visible. Red. Pink. Blue. Sarah pressed her hand to her mouth. This was someone's dog, she whispered. The realization moved through her slowly, gently like dawn light. A backyard burial spot. Hidden. Quiet. Loved. She sat back slowly onto the cold ground. Milo moved closer, pressed against her side. His warmth steady. Grounding. Sarah reached out and rested her hand on the small wooden marker. I'm sorry, she whispered, though she didn't know why she felt the need to say it. The lot was completely still. No wind. No birds. Just quiet memory. She looked at the ribbons in her hand, then at the faded pieces tied to the tree, then back at the marker. Milo, you've been bringing me pieces from here. He leaned lightly into her, not seeking praise, just present. She sat there a long time, processing, feeling something she couldn't fully explain. Sadness mixed with warmth, loss mixed with care. Eventually she stood, her knees stiff from the cold ground. We can't leave it like this, she said softly. Milo stood too, alert, listening. They walked slowly back through the gap in the fence, back into her yard, back into normal life. But everything felt different now. Inside the kitchen, Sarah placed the blue ribbon into the box. Then she added the older ones. She closed the lid carefully, not hiding them anymore, protecting them. Milo lay beside the cabinet, watching, calmer than she had seen him in days. That afternoon, Sarah sat at her laptop, but instead of work, she searched property records, old listings, neighborhood history, and after an hour, she found it. The empty lot next door had once belonged to a family. They had moved years ago. No forwarding contact. No listed pets. Just gone. Sarah leaned back in her chair slowly. Milo found someone who was loved, she whispered. Evening light filled the kitchen with soft gold. Milo slept deeply for the first time all week. Completely relaxed. That night, Sarah stood at the back door, looking toward the side yard, toward the fence gap. I think you wanted someone to remember, she whispered into the quiet. Behind her, Milo lifted his head, watched her, calm, certain, like he knew she finally understood. And for the first time since the ribbons started appearing, Sarah didn't feel uneasy anymore. She felt responsible, like something had been placed gently into her hands. Something quiet, something meaningful, something that had been waiting to be found. The next morning, Sarah didn't wait for Milo to wake her. She was already up, already dressed, already standing in the kitchen, staring at the ribbon box on the counter as dawn light slowly filled the room. The house felt different now. Not tense, not heavy, just quiet, respectful. Milo padded into the kitchen a few minutes later. He yawned once, stretched long front paws extended, back arched gently. Then he looked up at her, and immediately, his ears lifted. His tail moved once. Slow. He walked to the counter, sat beneath the ribbon box. Sarah swallowed. I know, she whispered. She picked up the box carefully, opened it. The ribbons lay inside, softly tangled together. Faded colors, different textures, different histories. She lifted the blue one gently. Milo watched her hands. Calm, not urgent anymore, just attentive. I think we need to fix it, she said quietly. His tail tapped the cabinet once. After breakfast, Sarah grabbed gloves, a small garden shovel, a soft cloth, a wooden stake from the garage. Not rushing, moving with purpose. Milo followed quietly. No pacing, no whining, just staying close to her left side, occasionally bumping her leg gently when she paused too long. Outside, the winter air felt sharper but cleaner. The sun sat low but bright. They walked to the side yard, then through the loose fence gap, into the overgrown lot. Milo moved ahead slowly but not pulling, guiding, stopping every few steps to make sure she was still behind him. When they reached the small burial spot, he stopped. Saturday, same place as yesterday, but this time, no trembling, just watching. Sarah set her supplies down slowly. The ground looked the same, quiet, undisturbed, forgotten by time, but not by Milo. She knelt carefully, brushed away leaves with gloved hands. The small wooden marker sat crooked, half buried. Weather had softened the carved letters. She touched the name gently. Luna, she whispered. Her voice felt small in the open air. She used the shovel carefully, not digging deep, just reshaping the sunken soil, leveling the ground where rain had slowly pulled it inward. Slow work, careful work, respectful work. Milo lay down beside her, chin resting on his paws, watching. Every few minutes he lifted his head, ears rotating toward distant sounds, then settling again. Protective, present. After leveling the soil, Sarah placed the marker upright again, pressed the dirt firmly around its base. Then she wiped the wood gently with the cloth, removing mud, revealing more of the faded carved name. She sat back on her heels, breathing slow. The winter sun warmed the back of her jacket. We didn't know you, she said quietly toward the marker, but someone loved you. Milo shifted closer. His shoulder pressed lightly against her arm. Warm, steady. Sarah reached into the ribbon box. She hesitated, then chose one red ribbon, the least damaged one. She tied it gently around the tree branch above the marker. The fabric moved slightly in the breeze. Not dramatic, just alive. Milo watched it, his eyes soft, relaxed. For the first time since this started, he looked fully at peace. Sarah felt her throat tighten. I think this is what you wanted, she whispered to him. He blinked slowly, then lowered his head back to his paws. They stayed there a long time, not talking, not moving much, just sitting in quiet sunlight, next to memory, next to time. Eventually Sarah stood, brushed dirt from her jeans. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's go home." Milo stood immediately, walked beside her, not ahead this time, not guiding, just accompanying, back through the fence, back into her yard, back into the kitchen. Inside, Milo went straight to his water bowl, drank deeply, then walked to his bed in the living room, and slept. Deep, heavy, peaceful sleep. Sarah stood in the kitchen doorway watching him. Her chest felt lighter. Not empty, just settled. Later that afternoon, Sarah printed a small laminated card. She wrote carefully, "Luna loved always." Nothing more. No dates. No assumptions. Just respect. That evening she returned to the lot. Milo walked beside her, relaxed. She placed the card gently beside the marker, securing it under a small flat stone. The ribbon moved gently above it in the breeze. The place looked cared for now. Not abandoned. Not forgotten. As they walked back home, sunset painted the sky in soft orange and pale pink. Milo bumped her leg once. She smiled down at him. "Good job," she said softly. He whacked. Not fast. Not excited. Just content. That night, for the first time in days, Milo didn't sit by the back door. Didn't pace. Didn't watch the ribbon box. He curled beside her on the couch, head resting across her ankle, completely relaxed. Sarah ran her fingers slowly through his fur. "You were trying to help," she whispered. He sighed softly. Deep puppy sigh. Outside, wind moved gently through tree branches. Inside, the house felt warmer than before. Not physically, emotionally, like something unfinished had finally been completed. Before bed, Sarah stood once more at the back door, looking out toward the side yard. The darkness felt normal again. Still. Peaceful. Behind her, Milo waited near the hallway. Not anxious. Just ready for sleep. She turned off the kitchen light. And for the first time since the ribbons began, there was no feeling of waiting. No sense of something unresolved. Only quiet. Only warmth. Only the soft certainty that sometimes dogs carry messages humans can't see. And sometimes, all they need is for someone to finally understand. Spring didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly. One warmer afternoon. One softer sunrise. One morning where the air no longer bit at Sarah's lungs when she stepped outside. Weeks had passed since the day in the lot. Since the ribbons. Since Luna. Life had returned to something that looked normal on the outside. Work calls. Laundry days. Grocery lists stuck to the fridge. But inside the house, something had shifted. Something calmer. Something deeper. That morning Sarah stood at the kitchen window with her coffee, watching pale green buds form on the maple tree branches. Behind her, Milo ate breakfast normally, tail wagging softly, bowl sliding slightly across the tile like it always did. Ordinary sounds. Comforting sounds. When he finished, he patted over and leaned against her leg. Warm. Solid. Present. She rested her hand on his head. "Good morning," she whispered. His tail thumped once against the cabinet. After breakfast, she clipped on his leash. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's go check." She didn't have to say where. Milo already knew. They walked through the yard, through the side strip, through the loose fence gap, though now Sarah had placed a small stepping stone there to make it easier to pass through without damaging the wood. The lot looked different now. Not cleaned. Not changed dramatically. Just noticed. The grass had started growing back in thin patches. The air smelled like damp soil and new leaves. They walked to the tree cluster. To Luna's spot. The ribbon Sarah had tied weeks ago had faded slightly in the sun. But it still moved gently in the breeze. Still present. The laminated card sat steady under the stone. Milo approached slowly. No urgency. No tension. He sat beside the marker. Relaxed. Sarah knelt beside him. She brushed away a few fallen leaves that had gathered around the base. Small maintenance. Small care. You're still remembered, she whispered softly. Not to Milo. Not to herself. Just to the quiet. A bird chirped somewhere overhead. Wind moved softly through the thin branches. Nothing heavy. Nothing sad. Just peaceful. After a minute Milo stood. Sniffed the ground once. Then nudged her elbow gently. Ready to go. No lingering. No waiting. They walked home slowly. Spring sunlight warmed her back. Milo trotted beside her, occasionally glancing up at her face like he did when he wanted reassurance. At home life continued. But the story didn't end there. Because 2 weeks later, Sarah met Mrs. Alvarez. It happened on an afternoon walk around the block. An older woman stood near the sidewalk, watching them as they passed. Not staring. Just noticing. Beautiful dog, she said gently. Sarah smiled. Thank you. He's still a puppy technically. Mrs. Alvarez nodded slowly. Golden retriever? Yes. They stood there for a moment, the quiet, neighborly kind. Then Mrs. Alvarez glanced toward the empty lot beside Sarah's house. You live next to that old property, right? Sarah's chest tightened slightly. Yes. The older woman nodded slowly. A family lived there years ago, she said. They had a little girl. And a golden mixed dog. Sarah felt her pulse shift. What was the dog's name? She asked quietly. Mrs. Alvarez didn't hesitate. Luna. The world seemed to go very still. Sarah swallowed. Mrs. Alvarez continued softly. The little girl used to tie ribbons on Luna's collar. Different colors. Every week. She smiled faintly. They moved when the father got transferred for work. It was sudden. They couldn't take the dog because she was already very old. Sarah felt her throat tighten. They buried her there, Mrs. Alvarez said gently, nodding toward the lot. The father made a little marker. Sarah blinked hard. I found it, she said quietly. Mrs. Alvarez looked surprised. Did you? Sarah nodded slowly. We cleaned it up. A little. The older woman's eyes softened. That's kind of you. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Mrs. Alvarez reached out and gently patted Milo's head. He reminds me of her, she said softly. Milo leaned slightly into her touch. Calm. Comfortable. Like he understood something Sarah couldn't fully see. That evening, Sarah sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around warm tea. The house felt peaceful. Complete. Milo slept nearby, belly up, paws loose, completely safe. Sarah looked toward the ribbon box, now kept not hidden, but respectfully stored on a shelf near the pantry. Not a mystery anymore. Not tension. Just memory. Later before bed she walked to the back door. Looked toward the side yard. Toward the lot beyond. Someone loved you, she whispered into the night air. Behind her Milo shifted on the rug. Sleepy. Content. Not waiting for anything anymore. And Sarah realized something quietly powerful in that moment. Healing didn't always mean fixing something broken. Sometimes, it meant acknowledging that something beautiful had existed, and letting it be remembered. She turned off the lights. Walked to the bedroom. Milo followed, nails clicking softly. The same comforting sound that had started this entire journey. He curled beside her bed. She lay down. The house settled around them. Warm. Safe. Complete. And for the first time since the first ribbon appeared, there was nothing left unsaid. Nothing left waiting in the dark. Only quiet. Only peace. And the steady unspoken promise between dog and human that some bonds don't end. They just change form. The morning sun slipped gently through the curtains, painting soft gold lines across the living room floor. Max lay there, chin resting on his paws, watching Sarah as she moved slowly around the kitchen. Months ago, he would have followed every step anxiously. Now there was calm in his eyes, trust steady and deep. Sarah glanced back and smiled. You don't have to guard me every second, you know. Max's tail thumped twice against the rug. Not disagreement. Just acknowledgement. Life had settled into something neither of them had known before, peace. The town had changed too. People who once saw Max as just a rescue dog now knew the story. They knew how he had found Sarah when no one else noticed her pain. They knew how he had stayed through the worst nights, through memories that woke her shaking, through days when even sunlight felt heavy. But what they didn't fully understand was this. Max hadn't rescued Sarah alone. Sarah had rescued Max right back. That afternoon they visited the old Riverside Trail, the place where everything first shifted between them. Winter had softened into early spring. Tiny green shoots pushed through the soil like quiet promises. Sarah sat on the wooden bench. Max climbed beside her, leaning his weight gently against her leg. "You remember this place?" she whispered. Max huffed softly, nose lifting into the breeze. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a new ribbon. Deep blue this time. Not a signal of fear. Not a sign of hidden pain. A symbol of something new. She tied it loosely onto Max's collar. "For new beginnings," she said. Max licked her wrist once, slow, deliberate grounding. The same way he used to when she felt panic rising. Except now her breathing stayed steady. Across the river, children laughed. Somewhere nearby, wind chimes rang. Normal life sounds. Safe sounds. Sarah leaned her forehead against Max's. "I think we're okay now." Max didn't move. Didn't blink. Just stayed there, solid and warm and real. Some bonds weren't loud. Some weren't dramatic. Some were built quietly, moment by moment, choice by choice, day by day. And those were the ones that never broke. As the sun dipped lower, they walked home side by side. Not rescuer and rescued anymore. Just family. And for the first time, neither of them was afraid of what tomorrow might bring. 'Cause whatever came next, they would face it together.